I've had a couple of business coaches that I've hired in within the last year, and I've learned so much from them and getting some coaching and translating that into running a practice. I really want to provide this for you guys, and the fact that one thing is chiropractors, and this definitely relates to us, and I'm sure relates to you guys, is that when we graduate from school, we don't graduate with a lot of business instruction or business acumen. So we're taught very much how to care for people, how to quote unquote diagnose conditions, and then how to provide care. And I'm intentionally not using the word treatment. I don't like using the word treatment because, frankly, we don't treat anything as chiropractors. And of course, I think we all understand that. So, but one thing that we don't learn is really how to run a business. And I'm going to say that most of us that have a practice, when you look at it, is that you are not necessarily an owner of your practice, hypothetically. You are an operator of your practice, which means that you've created a place where you are now self-employed. So you've created a job for yourself. So, what I want to do is I want to talk today about helping us change that mindset into more of a business owner as opposed to a business operator. And here's a couple of hypothetical questions to start with that I want you to ask yourself is that let's say if I'm the practice owner and I have some sort of an issue where I'm not able to go into the practice for any length of time. Let's call it more than a month at a time, or even an extended period of, let's say, 2 or 3 months. I get injured, or maybe I'm away traveling, or I have a family commitment that takes me away from my practice for any length of time. First of all, is my practice able to run without me there? So, have I created a team around me that's able to continue to run my practice, or does my practice just close its doors? Okay, number one. So, that's one question to ask yourself. And number two is that if I'm away for any length of time, and let's say my practice does stay open, maybe if I've hired a locum or if I have an associate or if I have a team in place that's able to run my practice without me there, is my practice able to sustain the volume and the income without me being there? Or even better, is it able to continue to grow without me being there? And these are questions to ask yourself because if the answer is no to any of those, let's say my practice has to close its doors, or if I'm away for any length of time, my practice is going to do a deep dive and I'm going to have to try to rebuild it when I come back, or it's completely unable to grow, then frankly, what you've created is you've created a job and your practice is highly dependent on you. Okay, so here's a couple of things, and this is why I wanted to get into this because let's say whatever your long-term goal is for being in practice, however long you want to be in practice, maybe it'll come to a time where you want to sell your practice. A practice that becomes very saleable is a practice that's very systematic. In other words, if the practice can run very systematically, so an owner can come in without being hands-on, and that practice is able to run without you being there as well as it was when you were there, or perhaps even grow without you there, then that practice becomes very attractive for a buyer. So therefore, you've created a business and your business is very saleable. And there's a real trend in chiropractic right now. There's a real trend in our profession for people that are selling their practices to corporations, which therefore want to run their practices. And they'll hire the associates and they'll hire the team and put them in there. But if the practice is such that it runs on its own or has the systems and team in place, that practice has a lot of value and a lot of saleability. So if your long-term goal is to get to the point where you want to be able to sell your practice or you want to relocate, the ability for you to transfer that practice to somebody else and recoup some money, recoup a good sale price for your practice is very high if it's system-based. So all that being said, that's why I wanted to go through today. Let's talk about the first 12 days of a patient experience and the systems that should be in place to, first of all, help that patient convert into a long-term patient, into a patient who's really wanting chiropractic care, not because of symptom relief, but because they understand the value of chiropractic care for their own health and well-being and full life expression from now for the rest of their life. Not just for them, but for their family as well. So there's certain things that have to happen in each of those 12 days so they get to that first re-exam at the end of the first month that will really increase the ability of that person to become a lifetime warrior patient where they're referring people. Okay. So, and again, I would love to make this interactive. If there are certain things that we talk about on certain days that are working for you and you want to share with the group, please do. Please share as we go through this. Okay. So, I've got some slides here that I put together, and I'd like to go through these just with some highlighted points. Some of you are doing some of the things already or all of the things already, but let's really talk about making them excellent. And with this business mindset, let's talk about really inspiring our team to do these things without us needing to drive the bus. Okay, here we go. So let's just say, let's talk about whatever care plan that you have, whether it's a let's say a 3 month care plan, 36 visits, 6 month care plan, whatever that might be. Some of you are doing 12 month, 1 year care plans. It doesn't matter what the care plan is. The first month is always key. Okay, and let's say on average, there's a new patient that comes in. Typically, that new patient's going to start 3 times a week. If you're trying to make any type of change with that person's health, with their neurological or structural component of their spine, it's really almost, I'm not going to say impossible, but it's tough to do it in less than 3 days a week. It's the same mentality of going to a gym or a personal trainer, and that personal trainer says, okay, we're going to get you totally ripped. You're going to lose 30 pounds but that's okay. You can come in once a week or you can come in even twice a week. It doesn't work. 3 times a week is kind of the minimum standard in the early stages. So if you're not suggesting 3 times a week to start with, that's one thing to start changing your mindset. And there's lots of science behind why that is important. Okay, so that's number one. So let's just say, hypothetically, wherever a new patient comes from, whether you're doing some sort of online advertising, Google ads, Facebook ads, or even now what's starting to get popular is AI powered ads. In other words, advertising on ChatGPT, that's starting to become popular. So, and that's something that, again, we're looking into to see how that works and how we can perhaps bring that to you. And the point is, it's now getting so easy that offices can do it themselves very, very easily because it's so automated with AI. So that's all coming. You won't have to hire an agency anymore. So that's all coming, and here I am, as affiliated with an agency, but I'm telling you that this is, for every office is going to be easier to share your message with more and more people, very automated with the use of AI. So that is coming down the pipeline. So whether a person comes from an online ad or whether they come from a referral, it really should be the same. Okay. The mindset should be the same. Starting the conversion process with that person up front in the first contact is really vital. So the first phone call by the team, typically by the team, to reach out, whether they've responded to an ad or whether they've gotten referred by another person, the first contact should have some strategic questions. Okay. It's not just about phoning that person and saying, hey, is morning or afternoon better for you? Is Tuesday or Thursday better for you? It's more about finding out what's driving that person. So questions like, and I'm going to suggest you guys write this down and share with your team. Questions like, what was the main reason you called us in the first place? And usually it's going to be some sort of a symptomatic answer. I have lower back pain. I have headaches. I have gastritis. Whatever the problem is, whatever the problem that caused that person to call the office. But then training your team to dive deeper into that, saying questions like, have you done anything to care for this problem, to treat this problem in the past? So maybe they've had chiropractic care, maybe they've only had medical care, maybe they've had some sort of therapy, whatever it is, finding out more about that. And then here's a really, really important question to have right on that very first phone call is this a problem that you would like to get to the root cause of? So in other words, your team is planting a seed. Is this a problem that you would like to either just cover up as far as just getting some symptomatic relief, or are you tired of it enough to get to the root cause of the problem and correct it? So you're planting a seed in that patient's mind. Okay, and that is a really strategic and very important question. So that happens on the first phone call. When the appointment's booked, okay, when the appointment's booked, immediately, and again, the team should be trained that this is a system now. So the person then, you get enough information, the team gets enough information on that first phone call that they'll have an email address or they'll have a text message, a text number, and they'll find out what is the best way to communicate with that patient. Do they prefer text messages? Do they prefer email? and then have a system that their initial intake paperwork is sent to them on right after that initial phone call, like right after that appointment's made. The team member on that phone call should make that patient aware that they are going to get their initial paperwork right off the bat. Like as soon as I get off this phone call, you're going to get a text message with a link, or you're going to get an email with a link to the initial paperwork. Fill that out as soon as possible. Can you have that filled out by this time tomorrow? Can you have that filled out before 24 hours before your appointment? Okay. Or if your appointment's within 24 hours, can you have that filled out in the next hour? So getting your team member to hold that patient accountable right off the bat is important. And it's important for this reason, because this is about training the patient. You are training the patient that they're being held accountable for their healing, for their correction. So getting them to do that and just say, for us to hold this appointment for you, that paperwork has to be done. When the paperwork comes in, again, that's you're checking the boxes here. Then there could be another procedure where either the doctor or maybe you have a tech CA go over the paperwork and reach out to the patient to go over some qualifying questions with that paperwork. How long have you been on this medication? Are these medications you'd like to come off of? Again, would you like to get to the root cause of this problem or just cover up the symptoms? Again, you're asking strategic questions to change the patient's mindset. These are questions that the medical office will not ask. So you're changing the mindset and you're setting yourself apart. All right. Qualifying that new patient time, reminding them that this time is reserved just for them. It's 45 minutes of the doctor's time. If there's any chance they can't make the appointment, to at least have the courtesy to give us as much notice as possible, hopefully 24 hours at least. And if you choose to do so, getting some form of a down payment or payment for that first appointment over the phone, and that will minimize the no-shows. That's if you're getting a lot of no-shows. So again, these are all things that qualify that patient. You're training them to be accountable. You're training them that payment takes place and that's part of the exchange. You're training them that they have a set time that they can't miss. You're training them to say if they need to cancel, they're going to call you and just not no-show. Okay, these are all very strategic questions. So there's a lot of things that you can go over with your team to make sure they're in place. And listen, is it a perfect world? Of course not. But if the majority of people get that type of interaction, you're going to build a practice of accountable patients. Okay? When the patient comes in, now, hopefully, you've removed the time that it takes to do that paperwork. If you've got patients coming in and they do their paperwork while they're sitting there in their first entrance to your office, that takes a lot of time. It's very draining for your staff as well. But if that person can come in, they can have the greeting that you want them to have. And I'm going to say we trained on this, is that all of our team would get up from behind the desk, out of their chair, walk around the front desk, and greet that person with a hug. And they were more than willing to do that. We had a team that was just very touchy-feely, if you will. They were very warm. They wanted that patient to have a wonderful experience. A lot of patients at that time would be completely overwhelmed. They would break down. They would start crying. Like it was that emotional release right off the bat. And that was huge in, again, building that relationship. So, uh, so that was the next thing. And then after that, then they would go through the Wow Me tour. And I'm going to say, so if this is something that you guys have not trained on, it would be so vital for you to spend some time with your team and have them actually show you, pretend you're a patient and have them actually show you what they do during that Wow Me tour. And you can either be wowed yourself or you can go through it and say, okay, maybe there's some better ways to do this. And let's kind of digress a little bit and say, okay, what is the point of the Wow Me tour? It's not necessarily to show them where the bathroom is or where the adjusting areas are. It's to really start to, again, change their mindset. So there's a lot of strategic things that go into the Wow Me tour. First of all, what is chiropractic? Why you're different. Okay. If you do corrective care and if you have vibration plates or traction units or Cerviguards or wobble discs set up in your office, That's different. And if they've been to a chiropractor before, they probably didn't get all that. So showing them that part of it, showing, and again, this was wording that we used specifically with our team, is this is where the doctors will do all of the latest corrective care adjustment techniques, and they would show them the adjusting table. But they specifically worded it like that. This is the where the doctors would do all of the most recent corrective care scientific adjusting techniques. So we would make it sound very professional and very specific. We would show them, we specifically had a poster on the wall of children and infants being adjusted. Here's a poster of many of our practice members that have brought their babies and brought their kids in to get adjusted, some of which were here the day they were born. Children do extremely well when their nervous system is working excellently right from birth. So again, it was planting a seed in that patient's mind. And then they would show them into the room, show them the x-ray room. This is where we do, this is the latest corrective set of x-ray setup. It's all digital. We'll have your x-rays done within seconds after they're taken. So, it was really setting the stage for that new patient to be extremely impressed through that tour. So by the time the doctor came into the room, the patient had had so many tidbits put into their mind to help their mind change from the fact that they're just here for a quick fix. Okay? So, doctor comes into the room, day one. Training on your script is very, very important, right? So your first interaction, and this is the time, I'm going to say if you've done the first part of this interaction well, you've got the forms before they came into the office. You've gone over them, or your team has gone over them and highlighted certain areas to talk about before you see that patient. This is not the time to go in and start talking all about their symptoms. Typically, in offices that are very efficient and have really high conversion rates, this interaction comes in with the doctor who's already informed about what they're going through. So, hey, Mrs. Jones, I see that you're having sciatica. My concern is what's causing this sciatica. And I want to know, first of all, what would your life look like if this sciatica could be corrected to never come back? Ask the question. What are the things that are stopping you now in your lifetime as a result of this sciatica? What would you like to be able to do or accomplish if we could get to the root cause of the sciatica? These are the types of questions and interactions you want to have with a patient. Not how long's it been there, not what's the character of the pain, not where is it, where does it radiate to, all that stuff that we've been taught in school, that doesn't convert the patient. Okay. And then you go into your scripting and you talk about the importance of the nervous system and the root cause of subluxation. And we heard Dr. Corey talk about the fact that he wants to use the term subluxation 30 times on day one. We had an intention, and it was so well scripted that 11 times through our examination, they would hear the term subluxation. But the initial educational system was 2 minutes, and it was very simply, if you don't mind, can I refer to this nervous system chart? So immediately you're taking the attention to the nervous system chart, and it's away from their symptoms. God put the most amazing healing power inside your brain and spinal cord for you to heal, for a cut to heal on your finger, for your heart to beat, for your lungs to breathe. You need to have good connection between your brain and your body. When you have subluxation in your spine, those bones are there to protect the nervous system, but if they're shifted out of place or they don't move properly, that can compromise that flow between the brain and the body. And what happens is that crushes those nerves. So not only can that cause your pain, but it can also affect nerves that are going to these vital organs, your heart, your lungs, your kidneys, your liver, and that can not only shut those organs down, but can literally cause early death. My concern is your sciatica, is your back pain or your headaches, is your gastritis coming as a result of subluxation? And that's what we're going to find out today. Would you like to go through an exam to see if we can determine that? So I'm getting permission for me to look for subluxation, not to check her back pain, not to check her sciatica, not to check her headaches, but to look for subluxation. So again, it's trying to set us apart, and it's all part of the conversion. When I go through the exam, and I want you to start analyzing what you're doing during your exam and what you're saying during your exam, because if your exam in any way addresses the pain, if you've done everything previous up to this point, like we just talked about, and then you start addressing symptoms and pain, it all falls apart. So my exam was completely focused on finding subluxation. It wasn't focused on anything to do with their symptoms, not about their headaches. In fact, and I've mentioned this before, I would intentionally start at the opposite end of the spine than where the symptoms were. So if they had lower back pain, I'd start in the cervical spine and palpate the cervical spine, talking about subluxation. If they had headaches, I'd start in the lumbar spine, talking about subluxation. And again, it was all just to change their mindset. Everything that we did was intentional to change their mindset. And through that examination, I would talk about subluxation at least 11 times. When I found a subluxation, not only would I talk about exactly, because I was had a staff person in the room, what level that was, but also what nerves that affected. Hey, Mrs. Jones, you got a subluxation at L4. That's affecting nerves to your lower colon. That's affecting nerves to your genital urinary tract. That, up a little higher, that may be affecting nerves that are going to your kidneys. All these organs are being affected because of that subluxation. So again, I'm not saying anything about the symptoms. I'm talking about the problem that has been developed and getting to the root cause. So at the end of the exam, the dialogue was basically saying that, this is a problem. You do have subluxation. We definitely need to get some x-rays, and we need to get an appointment set up right away. And our rule at the office was that day two appointment would happen within 24 hours. So I would turn to my staff member who was in the room, or if you don't have a staff member in the room, you take the person at the front desk and say, I'm concerned with what I found during that exam. We need to get something scheduled within 24 hours. And I would even go so far as, if you need to move some other people around, and again, this is all just mindset stuff for specifically for that patient. If you need to move some other people around so you can get Mrs. Jones in tomorrow, just do that. So Mrs. Jones is almost overwhelmed to the fact that, holy smokes, I do have subluxation. It is affecting my nerves. It is causing my problem that I came in with. And holy smokes, this has to get corrected. Otherwise, it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's spinal decay that's happening. It's dysfunction that's happening. So that's what I wanted her to leave with on the first day. So everything that we did was intentional to help her to understand that this was a serious problem. So, and I knew, like, so if a patient went out to the front desk and said, "Oh, I'm busy for the next week. I can't make it until next week," I failed. I wasn't firm enough on what I found, because this now needs to be so important that it becomes the absolute priority for her. Like, she needs to change. I'll cancel all my other appointments. I'll get somebody to watch my kids. I need to tell my spouse I got to get back in here tomorrow because Dr. Collins found subluxation, and that's the most serious thing that he could have found. So that's the urgency to get to day two. And again, guys, this is not to do anything other than to help convert her mindset into root cause, into correcting subluxation, into freeing up her nervous system so that she can express her full God-given health potential. That's really the intention behind it. And so after she left, uh, she was put on that day one phone call list, which I did never, ever, ever missed a day one phone call. And I'm going to tell you that was the biggest practice builder ever. For anybody if you do nothing else and you're not doing day one phone calls, you put day one phone calls in, literally you can double your practice in months as a result of that, just by doing day one phone calls. Okay, so that's day one.
So, I would love to hear what you would say on day one phone call again, just for my notes.
Yeah, so day one phone call, I wanted to keep it as short as possible. The intention is not for me to go and explain everything. The intention is just for me to make a connection with that patient and almost wow them that I was concerned enough to call. That's the feeling I wanted them to get. I wanted to visualize after they hung up the phone that they would go to their family, their spouse, husband, wife, their kids, and say, I can't believe the doctor just called me. He's so concerned of what he found during my exam today. I got to make sure I get in there tomorrow. That was the intention going into that phone call. So the wording of the phone call would be, "Hey Stephen, Dr. Colin calling. I hope I didn't catch you at a bad time. I just wanted to call because I am concerned. I did go over your x-rays in detail today, and that confirmed my suspicion. You do have subluxation. It is the root cause of that sciatica that you came in with. And my concern is that it is so severe that it is affecting nerves that are going to those organs, the lower part of the digestive tract, some of those genital urinary organs. And if we don't get on top of this, it's going to get worse. Okay. The good news is definitely something that I can help you with. I'm going to have more information for you tomorrow, and we're going to get started with your first adjustment. So no matter what you ask me, like you could ask me anything. Hey, Stephen, that's a great question. We'll go into that in more detail tomorrow.
I would say the key to the call, Stephen, is you want to leave them with hope. Like the biggest thing, so many of these people have been to so many different places. They've been told stuff is wrong, or they've been told you have these symptoms, we don't know what is wrong, right? They need to know that you've found the cause of their problem and you have a solution that you want to discuss with them the next day. But it's got to be this is a hope call.
Yep. That's a huge, huge point. Okay. Awesome. So we've done our day one phone call. So day two. So now, if we've done everything properly up to this point, the chances of them missing day two go way, 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 way down. Okay. And I don't care whether they're a Facebook patient, whether they're online, whether they're referral, it doesn't matter where they came from. If you've done everything as we've discussed up to this point, you have definitely started to change their mindset, and they're so concerned and curious about what's going on, they will show up for day two. Okay. So we go through day two. Whoops. And day two, now remember, day two is the bridge day. They may think they're coming in to see their x-rays, see their exam findings, and then get care. And that's okay. In fact, I want them to think that. Okay. I want them to think that. So I don't have to go into a big explanation. Oh, day two, we're not going to show your x-rays. We're going to talk to you about getting your spouse. I'm not going into that at all. I want them to think they're coming in to see their x-rays. Okay. In huddle, right before our shift in huddle, we talk about that person, and I'll go over with my team what's going on with that person. So we're all aware of that. And my team was fantastic. They had incredible concern for everybody that was at. They understood chiropractic so well. And not only that, I mean, they were obviously all getting adjusted, their families were getting adjusted, so they understand the value of chiropractic. So when that person came in, they were the first point of contact, they would show their immediate concern. So no matter what was going on, whether the phone was ringing, whatever, they would immediately stop. And we trained on this, is that they would have a state shift. So Stephen walks into the office for his day two. And again, my team member, typically it was Diane, would come out from behind the desk and say, Stephen, I'm so glad you're back. Dr. Colin is really concerned with what he found in your exam findings. So right off the bat, like Steven's, again, mindset, Steven's message is that, holy smokes, like he's concerned enough that his team knows what's going on. She's walked out from behind the desk. Like it's an emotional reaction that you're getting from this patient. So, so that the front desk person would say, Stephen, I'm going to take you into the room. Dr. Collins is going to be in with you in just a second, and he's going to talk to you about what the next steps are. So again, Stephen might still be thinking he's going to see his x-rays or see his exam findings or a scan or anything like that. When I walk into the room, again, my state changes. I could be joking around with another patient, having a great time, and immediately I switch into this concerned state. And I walk in with Stephen and I say, Stephen, I'm glad you're back. As I mentioned on the phone last night, I am really concerned with what I found in your x-rays. You do have subluxation. It is worse than what I thought. There's already decay and degeneration happening, and it is affecting your nerves. It is absolutely the root cause of this problem. But my concern is that not only is it causing the problem, it's also affecting those nerves that are going to those organs. So I'm reiterating that. And then I would even say, Stephen, on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 was the absolute worst case scenario, you're an 8 or you're a 9, whatever relationship you feel is necessary for that person to understand. So immediately Stephen's sitting there going, what the heck? Like, wow, this is a lot worse than I thought. I was coming in for a quick fix, but it's totally different. So then I would do just a very brief little statement to say, because this is such a serious problem, here's what I would like to do if you're okay with this. Instead of showing you your exam findings today, I would like to go ahead with your first adjustment today. Would you like to go ahead and do that? Sure. Stephen says, yeah, let's start. Because of the concern I have with the x-rays, the scans, the exam findings that we had, I'd like to set up special time outside of my office hours to go through this in detail. The reason being is because of the seriousness of this problem, you're going to have some decisions to make because it's going to take some time, because it's going to take an investment on your part. So I'm already addressing the cost, right? It's going to take an investment on your part, and you're going to have some decisions to make. Would that be okay with you? And I just get affirmation. Many people ask Stephen, because of what has gone on with this exam and what we're going to see on those x-rays or exam findings, that they would like to bring somebody with them. Would you like to bring along your spouse or a support person to help with those x-rays and see what's going on? So I'm inviting. It's not a, hey, I need you to bring your spouse with you. No, I'm inviting them to bring somebody. And um, the follow through with that is very, very high if it's done that way. Okay. So and then again, as Brian mentioned, then it's about giving hope. This is absolutely something we can help you with. You're in the right place. It's going to take time. Would you like to go ahead with your first adjustment? And then we bring them to the table. And again, so here, now I'm going to digress a little bit on day 2. This is vital. Okay. This is absolutely vital. When you're talking through this first adjustment, and I'm going to suggest to you guys, you don't go 100% on this first adjustment. It starts off very light. You may only adjust 1, 2, maybe 3 segments at most. Okay. Very, very, you're dipping your toe in the pool with this patient. You almost want them to get off the table and go, that's it. Like seriously, because the reason is that you don't know how they're going to react. And so explaining yourself through this, first of all, explain what they're going to feel. You're going to hear a little cracking noise. What the cracking is gas escaping from the joint. So it's not like bones cracking. You go through that with the patient, and 3 things can happen afterwards. You may not feel much, may not feel any change at all. This is just the initial entry point. You may be a little worse, and that's okay because we're changing the structure and changing the function of your body, and you may actually start to feel better. And that would be fantastic. Remember that the correction of this problem takes time. The symptoms will start to change long before the correction's made. So again, pre-framing these things so the patient doesn't think that, oh, I feel great, I'm better. I don't need to go back. So you're pre-framing this. Then we would set up a time for the doctor's report and let them know this is a specific time for them. Now, so if you only have one doctor's report a week, or let's just say you're doing a one-on-one report of findings that's not a group doctor's report, make it sound like it's a specific time arranged for them. Maybe it's in your office hours, maybe it's out of your office hours, whatever it is, but it's a specific special time for them and their support person. It's very important, again, for the mindset shift you want to happen in this patient, that they think that this is a special time for them. And I like to let them think that I'm actually doing this as a courtesy outside of my office hours because I'm so concerned with what's going on. We had a handout that we would give to the patient as we brought them out to the front desk. And again, I would reiterate to the front desk person, hey, Diane, Stephen just got his first adjustment. He did fantastic. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really concerned with what I've found in his x-rays and in his exam findings. We want to set up special time for him. And Stephen mentioned he would like to bring his spouse along with him on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Okay, so can you please set that up? And so Diane would know exactly what the next step would be. So then she had a handout for him about what happens next. This is going to happen. It basically describes his doctor's report. There may be some other people there. Come prepared if you have insurance questions. Come prepared to make a decision as far as your finances and making a commitment to your care. Bring your calendar with you. Like, it had all these different steps. Everything you want that patient to do, it was on this handout. And she would give the handout to them. And again, she would qualify that Dr. Collin has set up special time for you and your spouse to be there. If there's any chance that you can't make it, please give us as much notice as possible, and we will reschedule that special appointment for you. So I want you guys to kind of think. So again, the intention of all these systems, and we trained on every single system, not only what was said, but how it was said, what type of concern and what type of state that the delivery person needed to be in to say those certain things that we said during day one and day two. And we trained on it so much with our team members, with our associates, that I wanted to be so confident that anybody in the office, any team member, any associate could deliver that experience, the day one, day two experience, with excellence. And in fact, I remember telling them that I wanted to train them so well so that when they started their own practice, they could immediately hit the ground running with success. That was, again, the mindset. So training was all about getting people, training the people in our office to run the office without me there. That was the thinking. Okay. When they left day two phone call. And again, never missed a day two phone call. In fact, the system is that my tech CA, Diana was her name. We had Diana at the front desk. Diana was the tech CA. She would, at the end of every single shift, send me an email before I left the office, and it would have all of the day one names. It would have all of their phone numbers right beside their names and any specific highlights or necessary points that I needed to remember. Maybe it was the spouse's name, whatever that was. And literally, I would put my phone on my mount on my way home. I would open up the email and I would click and talk to those. I would do all those phone calls between the office and home at the end of the day. So it never got missed. And literally, I would go out to the car and I would open up the email. If I didn't have that email, which was rare, I would phone her and say, "Hey, listen, I haven't got the email yet." And she'd say, "Oh, sorry, I got busy doing it." She'd send it to me right away. And I would do all the calls before I got out of the car when I was in my driveway at my house. And if I wasn't done, I would sit in the driveway and finish those calls before I walked into the house. Then I could be totally free. My mind was free. When I walked into the house, it was done. I separated the office from family time. So again, that was all part of the conversion process. I'm going to say our day one, day two process was so consistent and so good and so effective. We had excellent, excellent conversions as a result of that. So there's lots of nuances in this day two. So if you're doing corrective care and you want to do your day two x-rays, or you want to, instead of just adjusting that person, you get them to do their therapies, their traction, their cerviguard, their wobble disc and whatnot, and then you take the day two x-rays, that's okay. You just fit that in where you need to fit that in. But everything else is exactly the same. Day two phone call was very simply, "Hey, Stephen, just wanted to give you a quick call because you had your first adjustment today. How are you doing?" Stephen says, "I feel worse." "Stephen, that's fantastic. That's exactly what I expected." Stephen says, "I've never felt this good." "Hey, Stephen, that's fantastic. It's exactly what I expected." The correction we're trying to make in your spine is going to take time. And we're going to go over all of the details next time you and your spouse are in the office on Thursday night at 7 o'clock. And we're going to talk about the changes that you're going to experience through that time. So I'm happy you're doing great, or I'm excited that you're actually feeling worse, because that's a sign we've already made some change. I'll see you Thursday night at 7 o'clock. Okay. So it's just a very simple addressing whatever conditions or any concern. And again, if they had questions, hey, that's a great question. If you don't mind, allow me to answer that in detail for you, where we're not rushed on Thursday night when you and your spouse are here in the office. Fair enough? And that was it. But again, it was the mindset was I wasn't there to teach them. I was there to just make that connection. Again, it's another touch point. I'm building trust and I'm building that relationship. So the day two phone call really was 2 minutes or less. Same with the day one phone call, 2 minutes or less. Okay. So I would really encourage you guys, if you're not doing those, just do them because it's that trust touch point that you're creating. If we go to day three, now whatever your day three is, okay? So let's and we use the term day three not because it's the chronological day three, it's just that part of the process. So some of you do your day three, in other words, your report of findings, you do it on their second visit. Some of you do it on their third visit. Some of you, which I don't recommend, do it on the first visit. But the fact is, to get all of these touch points and trust points in place, in my opinion, it needs to be spread out. And this is why this day one, day two, day three with three separate visits works extremely well because you're building trust. You're helping that person to change their mindset. If you want to build a quality, lifetime, wellness based practice, the most important thing that you can do is build trust. And you can't build the trust you need with that person in one day. You just can't do it. It doesn't happen. So 2 days, maybe 3 days works a lot better. Okay. So whatever you're doing for day three, whether it's a one-on-one report of findings, whether it's a group doctor's report, there's always that interaction beforehand, right? In group doctor's report, we talk about our doctor's report opening and the 4 points that are really important. Hey, they're here in a group. How long is this going to take? I came to see my x-rays. They're going to show my x-rays in front of the group, and holy smokes, what's this going to cost? So those 4 points, time, group, x-rays, or exam findings, if you're not doing x-rays, and money, addressing those right up front to set the mind at ease. Same thing in report of findings. Okay. You need to address that on some level with a report of findings. What happens if the spouse is not there? If they've agreed to bring their spouse and they've suggested yes, and you've invited them, yes, it would be really important for my spouse to come along, and then the spouse doesn't show up, that's where you as an office have to make a decision. Do I reschedule this appointment or do I go ahead and show these x-rays? But training your team to have that discussion with the person, and let's think about this. Let's think about the challenges or the problem points. And let me just ask you guys. So let's just say if somebody shows up without their spouse, potentially what could happen?
I would need to discuss this with my spouse first before I commit to anything or decide anything.
Right. And so for those of you who are getting that, I mean, so this is where you have to decide, is it worth it to me to risk that from happening? Or do I say, maybe I have or train the team to have that discussion previously, and then the team can make the decision. Hey, you'd mentioned that you were going to bring your spouse today because Dr. Collin was so concerned with what he found in your x-rays, your exam findings, and talk about your schedule of care and your financial investment. Are you prepared to make those decisions on your own? Or would it be better to reschedule this so that your spouse could be with you maybe tomorrow or the next day or next week? That would be a great question to have your team trained to do that. You guys
The
have
key on that one there, if you're asking that question, exactly how Colin posed it is how it should be posed to the patient, where it's not just like, so this is happening. It's more like, are you prepared to make those decisions on your own? Quiet, they have to answer. Because if they answer that, yes, I am, no one wants to be a liar. So when they get to that point, they're either going to make the decision on, most of the times they'll be able to make that decision on their own, or at least try to, because they told you at the beginning they were. Where people go wrong is like, hey, we're going through this. Are you okay with that? Yep. Right. It's like there's a study out there where they ask people booking for restaurants. Um, if for any reason you can't make your reservation, will you please give us a call in advance? And if they left it and they had to just say yes, they actually did that versus people explaining to them what their cancellation policy was.
And again, if we digress a little bit here and say, our team, meaning our staff, associates, doctor in the office, is trying to build a relationship with this person. or trying to gain their trust, these are important questions to have. Like these would be questions I would have with my best friend. These would be questions I would have with a family member, just to make sure that they were directed in the right way, but give them an opportunity to be comfortable, but also hold them accountable at the same time. Okay, so whether you're doing one-on-one report of findings, whether that happens on their second visit or their third visit, these are good questions to ask. Today, we're going to be going over your exam findings and your x-rays. And as I mentioned on the phone calls we've had on, during the day one, during the day two, I am concerned with what's going on. You have a serious problem, maybe worse than what you thought, that's affecting your nervous system, that's going to continue to decay, that if you don't get corrected is going to get worse. So we're going to be talking about exactly what needs to happen for you to correct this problem. Is there any concern with you making a decision today about moving forward as far as the time commitment or the financial commitment? Do you need somebody else here to help you make that decision, or can you make that on your own? That's a very reasonable question. Always be trained on at the end of day 3. And again, we would train on this every single week is our systems that we used in the office at the end of day 3, because the closing of our doctor's report, we did a group doctor's report. The closing of our doctor's report was a call to action. It was those 3 points that we made it very clear that for them to qualify, and I literally phrased it like this, for them to qualify to become a patient in our office, we're only willing to accept them if they're willing to commit to the care plan. I do not want to compromise their care. So if I say to them that they have a problem that requires 3 days a week and it's going to take 12 months or 6 months or whatever it is, that's the recommendation. I don't go back on my recommendation. I don't bargain with them about, oh, you can come once a week, you can come twice. I don't do that. We can help them with the cost if necessary, but I'm trying to raise their bar, okay, to get them to commit. That's number one. Number two, it's not a request that they bring their kids in to get checked. It's a requirement. And I don't want to make it sound militant, but I came from the standpoint of love and concern that, hey, I do this for my own kids. I know how it can help. I've seen kids die early because they're subluxated, because their nervous system is not functioning properly. I don't want that to happen to your kids. So we're going to set time up for your kids to come in and get checked for subluxation. I'm not telling you they have to start care, but I want you as a parent to know if your children are subluxated, if they're developing scoliosis in their spine, if they have forward head posture or technic, if their nervous system is compromised, that's going to affect them through their growth years, if it's going to limit their learning ability, like all these different things. So I want the parents to know that. So we trained on it that the team would immediately pass the baton and they would say, okay, when can we get your kids booked in? What would be the best day and time to get your kids booked in? And we would book them in. And they would have, in the first 2 weeks, their exam would be free. So we removed all the barriers. There's no question. Like there's no we're doing this as a courtesy to them. I don't want their kids sick and dying as a result of subluxation. So we booked their family. And that was a trained thing. It never got dropped. And that's one of the reasons why we built a great family practice. And we always had kids coming in for their exams. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was something of value. Okay. I'd love some feedback if you guys want to send me messages or whatnot. Tell me if there's something that you do and add in that would be helpful to share with the group. I'd love to know.